Am I online now? If you can let me know, that would be lovely. I shall wait for your feedback. Oh lordy, this is... Yay! Thank you, Kangaroo. Why do YouTube have to change things? Stop, nerds. If it's fine, stop trying to tweak it. It just makes things more difficult. Goddamn nerds. Can't be happy with just leaving things alone. Evening all. There we go. Loud and clear. You're on. Excellent. Because it's 105 days until Christmas. Paul, shush. Just shush. Right. Excellent. We are online. That's great. For some reason, they've added in more complications on the back end of streaming, and apart from getting everything going, you have to press a button to go live as well, instead of it just going live through the streaming software like it was before. Stress. Right then. Exactly, Kangaroo. Don't break it. Nerds. Bloody nerds in Silicon Valley. Right, let's calm. Let's have a drink. And get on with tonight. So tonight, as you may well have seen through the community tab on the channel, whether it's my Instagram or Twitter, basically I haven't been out shooting for about 3 weeks now. Maybe it's even a little bit longer. It's been a while, that's for certain. So instead of you watching me edit something that you've already seen me edit, but in a slightly different way, I thought we'd do something a little bit different and have a Q&A like I threatened to do last week. So here we are, it is Q&A time. So I do have a list of people that have come back to me with questions, so thank you very much to everybody that did that. To be honest, I was thinking, well, I'll get about 3 questions, because I'm not Tom Heaton, I'm not Nigel Danson, therefore nobody's really that interested, and I have a list of, how many? I have a list of 16 questions to answer. Some will be easy and quite quick, and some will might be a little bit longer, and some I'll skip completely because they were not too tricky, but you know. Evening, Paul. Good to see you. So yes, a Q&A. I thought this would probably happen, but I did get a few about the editing process and that kind of thing, which I was kind of hoping I wouldn't, but you know, it's obviously what people want to know about. So what can I do? I will do my best to answer them. So if you do have any other questions as we're going through, do leave them in chat. There's also, what's that paid chat? Super chats as well, if you really want to be generous with that. Not at all, Paul. You can ask a question and I will get to it forthwith, or at some stage during the thing. But just let's not have too big a list, because I don't want to be here all night. So again, max an hour. Be lovely if it was actually below that for a change. So I think probably one of the things I might actually do as well, instead of making this live stream available immediately after, I might put it just straight to private, and then I might slice and dice and put it out as its own video in the near future, just so it's a little bit different. So yes, ask away if you've got any other further questions, but we will start with my good friend and potential future, well, not potential future, I think we actually have confirmed, future tuition partner, workshop co-leadery thing, Rob Knight, and we are in the process of putting something together for January or February time. Anyway, so that's coming up soon. So he asks, if you were asked to... Rob, he's a thinker, and you can tell by this question. If you were asked to focus and photograph 1 single square mile geographically for a whole year, where would it be, why, and do you think it would limit or expand your creativity? I did have a bit of a think about this today. Obviously, due to circumstances and that type of thing, I'm tied to a small area anyway. Maybe it's not a square kilometre, but certainly probably a 20 mile kind of square radius. Square radius? A 20-mile radius of home is pretty much about as far as I get these days. So to me, I feel restricted. I'm not jumping on a plane and going to Mongolia or America and this kind of stuff every 5 minutes like some of them out there. So I do feel that has actually benefited my creativity, is that I've been stuck in this area for so long, and that's probably why the ICM has come about, is because if you're going to the same place week in, week out, you get pretty bloody bored of it. So hence why all the ICMs come about, and other ways of working. So going back, backwards first with this question is, would limiting myself to 1 square mile limit or expand my creativity? If I'd done it 7 or 8 years ago, it definitely would have expanded my creativity. And I think it would expand anybody's creativity, because you've got to think differently. But now probably would limit it, because I just want to get to certain points. Get certain views, that kind of stuff, certain locations. So where would it be? Well, like a 1 square miles block. Location wise, I think I would have to actually go and jump straight into a city somewhere. Something that's got maybe old and new architecture, and maybe with a park somewhere nearby, so you get a little bit of greenery, a bit of soft edges, and do something like that. And then you'd probably, with it being a city, you would probably shoot more nightscapes, more people shots, all this kind of stuff. So that would expand creativity and so forth, and change my work, obviously. So that would probably be quite a challenge. So picking a location somewhere in Manhattan would probably keep us busy for a year. But seeing as at the minute, I tend to pick up the camera maybe 4 times a week. Dog, get out! Out! Come on, out! Sorry, that got disturbed. So yeah, Manhattan probably. That would keep us busy. Lots of people, lots of buildings, Central Park, that kind of thing. A nice square mile block, that'll do. So, yeah. Evening, Stephen. Right, question number 2 from Robert King, again on Twitter. You can probably tell I did this by app. I just pulled them off. Robert King asks, what keeps you motivated to continue to produce creative work? What keeps me motivated? Just the desire to kind of continue to create something slightly different and slightly better than or what you think is slightly better, or you want it to be better than the last image you made. I've always been one of these people that subscribe to the thing that your best image is the last one that you made, whether it be a painting or a sketch or a photograph. Produce creative work. Yeah, I suppose the kind of work I'm doing now is, to some people, it'll be creative, as in because it's different. But to me, I'm almost thinking that it's now just the norm for us. So is it being creative? Kind of. At times I just feel it's a bit samey, so therefore sometimes I just feel like I'm churning it out. And like another part of motivation is that, like, I'm motivated to try to make some money out of it. So if I'm not making new work, then my social channels are going quiet. I'm not doing live streams because I'm not making anything. And that just kind of stops, and then your profile drops, and then nobody wants to be taught by you. And before long, the bank manager's calling you because you got no money left. So that's a motivation in a kind of way. I will come to that one in a minute, Paul. And a second one from Robert. How do you deal with creative block? I haven't really got to the point of it being of me being completely blocked. Just as in, I've got no ideas. Generally, because I don't know whether, if I was a traditional landscape photographer, would I be stuck with creative block because you would just jump in the car and go to a new location at sunrise, and chances are you're going to get a little bit of nice light onto a tree, onto a cliff, onto some moorland, whatever. You're going to get a reasonable shot, and then you're going to be reasonably happy with it. Creative block with me, it's almost similar. You go to a new location somewhere, it might not be very far away, and just shoot it. And obviously, with my technique, it's all movement and you just churn away until you see something that you like. Literally, just keep on churning away. And eventually you'll see a streak or something that sparks the imagination and gets you going from there. So dealing with creative block is really just keep on. Just bash on as much as you can. Just go. Just keep going out, and eventually you'll get through it. Try different techniques. Use a tripod. Don't use a tripod, depending on what type of photography you do. Just try something else. Shoot people, shoot animals. But shoot animals with a camera, obviously. Go to the city if you're generally shooting countryside stuff. And if you're from the city, nip out to the countryside. Just do something just to change it up. But just keep at it. Just keep banging away. I will come to that question later, Ray, because there's some similar ones. So that was them two from Robert. The next one from Joe. I will put my teeth back in. From Joe. I can't say it. God, man, same name as my grandfather. Joseph Smith. How did you first get into ICM photography? Now, there is others have asked this as well, so they might kind of just blend. Some of these might blend together, so I might not cover it twice, but obviously refer back to this. I got into ICM photography. I think it was 2013, summer of 2013. I think I was shooting a long exposure on the moor just behind my house of sunset. I had some really crappy Cockin filters, and they were like really, really red and horrible. And I think I had like maybe a 2-stop and a 3-stop in this really horrible plasticky filter holder, just to really knock things down, but obviously not to the stage of a 10-stop filter. So I was getting a few seconds exposure, and I did actually trip over. Well, I knocked the tripod as I was walking around during the capture, and it gave us this streak of red sunset in the sky, and I thought that looked reasonable. So after that, I just started even on the tripod and just rocking the camera back and forward whilst it was on the tripod. So just playing around with that, and then probably forgot about it for a few months, and then discovered the work of Valda Bailey, which at the time she was doing multiple exposures and an ICM mixed together in camera using the Canon 5D Mark III, and they looked all very oil painty, that kind of thing, and that's pretty much what, you know, it was her fault that I'd seen her stuff and thought that looks really cool, I want to learn how to do that. So like looked at her stuff, tried to deconstruct it to see how she did it. Didn't really have any idea, but I knew it was there was elements of ICM in there, so I found out about ICM, watched a video, well, apart from experimenting myself, just because obviously we were out there and waft the camera around like an idiot. Found a video online from On Landscape, and Doug Chinnery was demonstrating various ICM techniques and thought processes. So I watched that, so I had a bit more purpose of shooting, and that went from there really, and didn't really look back. Just carried on. Obviously, most of the time it was just a single exposure, and just shooting normal, mundane kind of subjects. One I remember is a sunflower, but at the time I was shooting a lot of black and white, so that sunflower was turned black and white. That kind of thing, kind of images of ploughed fields, I remember one. And again, going back to the Cochran filters that I had back then, they were so bad, or so red, you got funny hot spots on the, not on the sensor but on the image. I think you get it if you use certain lenses with an infrared filter. You get this weird hotspot. Well, it was doing that, so those Cochran filters went the distance. Well, I'm saying they went the distance. I've still got them somewhere, but they stopped getting used. So that was my foray into ICM. I would dig out some early images, but they are well hidden, and it would take us half an hour to find them all. Find anything. So that's what one. I think there are a couple of other ICM related, how did I get started and all that kind of things in there as well. The next one was from Instagram, from a story that I put up, leave a question, and one was from Alexander Fillet. I hope I will butcher names. There are a few non-English names coming up, so I will butcher them, and I apologise for that now. And he asks, what ND strength do I use mainly? I use a B&W 6-stop ND filter, which I can't remember what the actual ND terminology is. I think was it ND 3000 is a 10-stop? I don't know. Don't trust all that. Just this, it's a 6-stop filter. So I use that 95% of the time. Maybe it's even higher. Maybe it's 98% of the time. I have a 3-stop filter for when it gets very dusky, and I still want to get, pull that shutter speed out a little bit. So I've got a 3-stop now. That's the latest ND filter I got, and I've had that maybe 3 or 4 years now. 3 years now, I think. And I've got my old 10-stop. Again, it's a B&W screw-in filter, and I've had that for years. Back in the days when I used to use a tripod and did all that black and white, long exposure, sea, and flow and water kind of imagery from back in them days. So that's the three that I use, but probably 98% of the time it's a 6-stop, because it lets me control. If I need to brighten the exposure, I can use the f-stop to f-stop down to f4 or whatever, depending on what lens I'm using. And if it's very bright, say during the day, I can move my f-stop up to like f13, f16 to not keep that light under control. Evening, David. So that's the ND filters. And Alec also asked about my editing process. Whether he's never actually watched one of my live streams, I don't know, but I will recommend watching one of my live streams if he wants to be able to see how I edit, because there's 63 episodes out there now. So yes, editing processes, watch me live streams. Beck2684 also asks about my editing process, but mentioned like my colour editing process. So whether I was gonna don't actually assume it's a lady. Colour editing process. Obviously, 99% of my work, well, 99.9% of all my work is colour. So again, watch my live streams to see how I do the various things. But generally, colour editing, play with the curves adjustment layer, whether that's in Photoshop or whether it's in the one of the Nick collection tools like Viveza or Analog Effects Pro. Use your curves adjustments. Learn what does what. There's loads of tuition sessions and stuff out there on YouTube land that'll teach you how to use curves and what does what and moving various points around. If you can master curves, you can make nearly any colour that you want. So yeah, for colour, just use curves, or it'll help you refine and all that. I mean, one little thing that happened this week, I had to buy my profiling was all out of whack, so I had to go out and buy a new colour monitor calibration, and this is the Data Color Spider X. I think it's been out a year or so now. Just because my Spider 3 was completely, well, it doesn't talk to Windows 10, which was a problem because it wasn't configuring things right. And I noticed when I came to print some stuff this week, it was all it was way out to what I had edited initially. Because once I profiled the stuff, it looked kind of like a lighter version of what the prints were. So I had to take out quite a bit of green from the file to print how I imagined the original file should be. And by taking out the green, it was like a greeny yellow. So just boosting the blue curve brought all that original vision back. And now all I did was in the curves, just moved the blue up a little bit, and obviously a little bit of brightness on the RGB curve as well, just to get the brightness up ready for print. So curves adjustments for editing colour and editing generally, brightness, contrast and all that. Use curves, very, very powerful. Just get comfortable with it and get comfortable experimenting with curves as well, because they're just so powerful. Just use curves. You can forget about levels and hue and saturation. They're probably easier ways to work, but you can do the same with curves. You might get some very extreme things, or you might have to do several curves adjustment layers in Photoshop, but you're still very, very powerful. So have a good play with them. Right, that's some of the Instagram ones. I'll just come back to chat. I will get back to some questions. I'll just pick out the odd one. David, would I consider using a variable ND filter? Yes, providing I could get it from, say, 9 stops down to 4. I did look at an ND filter, maybe it's from Format High Tech, not so long since, because they had a sale on, and their ND filter went from 1 up to 6. Well, I'd prefer it on the darker side, sort of, say, from 9 down to 4. Because to me, you don't really need a one-stop filter, because you can just use your f-stop. Is that a quick one? Peter, I do not like blend if. I am still trying to get my head around it. Shh. Justin, where are we going on Saturday? I don't know. I shall email you. Good to see you, Robert. Welcome back. Right. Okay. Back to the the sent in questions. So again on Instagram, this one I'm gonna butcher. Javi Garcia Street on Instagram. Best ICM conditions for street photography. Street ICM. Having not really done street ICM, I would probably aim for a very bright and sunny day. Look for, especially if we're aiming for capturing people, bright sunny day, people in darker clothing, say maybe it's a pair of jeans and a darker top, and then the actual people will actually stand out. So maybe obviously like a light building behind or a light sky behind them. To be honest, I barely ever shoot people, ICM or other people, other styles. I'm not a people person, but that's kind of what I would probably look for, especially street, as in city-wise. Actually shooting probably small movements. I'll be, when you see my videos and you see us flinging the camera around like so, shooting people on the street, probably maybe it's just a small shake of the camera up and down, just so you retain the shape of the person, and maybe elements of the buildings around and the streetscape. That would probably help. And his follow-up question, have I tried ICM on very busy streets? No. I've not shot... Well, it wasn't a busy street. I did shoot some ICM in Manchester, but it was pretty quiet, people-wise, on the street, and I wasn't aiming at the people. I was aiming at the buildings. I think when it comes down to it, I am a buildings photographer, an architectural photographer. Maybe not in a detailed way, but it's like do you like making things like look oldie worldy and that type of thing. But it always tends to be buildings, or whether it's big old churches or cathedrals or monuments, that kind of stuff. It seems to be the built environment. But I did actually study. I did building studies at university, so maybe there is a love of the built environment, providing it's old. That's inherent in me. So the next one, here's another name I will butcher. Klaus Gerke, I think that'll be how it's pronounced. Lightroom steps to achieve what I get in the Nick collection. The big problem with the Nick collection, the main creative element that I use, is that I use the double exposure functionality in it to do the turning things upside down and round about. So that's the one thing that you can't do in Lightroom, because it involves layers, obviously. But you can do it in Photoshop. So in Photoshop, you would take your base layer, create a new layer, of the same layer. So Control J makes a new layer of the same of the layer below. Zoom out a bit so you've got a bit of space to play around with. Go to Free Transform and maneuver that second layer around, expand it scale wise, and then using blend modes, just experiment with your blend modes. You've probably got more creative choices in Photoshop using that second exposure to turn upside down stuff, because you've got other blend modes. You've got your lighten and darken and difference and all these kind of weird and wonderful ones. But if you're wanting something that's fairly close to the Nick collection, is something like either multiply or normal, and just reduce the opacity to 50%, and then just play around with the opacity, scale it out, rotate it, just using Free Transform, and that'll get you so far. And then colour wise, again, just use the curves adjustments. Curves are your friends. You know, you can get pretty much any colour. And also, if you're doing it in Photoshop as well, you can be more precise with selections. You can use Peter's favourite tool of Blend If you want to, impose colours onto just small parts of the image. You can do that. Hi Javi. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name too much. So yes, so you can actually do that kind of stuff in Photoshop. So not Lightroom just by itself, because of the it's a single layer and you can't get away from that. But you can do it in Photoshop to a point, but you will be starting from scratch from each thing. But again, learn curves, get comfortable with curve adjustments, and all the other kind of tools that you get with Photoshop as well. But colour wise, you'll be able to mimic in Lightroom itself using white balance and the curves adjustments, tone curve adjustments as well. So that's one way to do that in Lightroom, but Photoshop for the second exposure. Or don't be so tight and buy Nick, it's like $50 or something. And then buy my presets, obviously. So hopefully that helped, Klaus. John Adamthwaite, which I presume is John A, that's usually in the chat, but we'll just assume that. Right, I'll just catch up with chat before I get too far. Get back to work, David. Peter, typical number of images that I use to blend together. I tend to start with 5. I don't know if that's just it. I think it's just happenstance. Is that when I go through Lightroom, you've seen us do it several times in this live stream, is that I'll pick that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, and it just happens to be 5. It just seems to be that happy medium. If you go above that, and then you obviously drop, you select them all and drop in a multiply blend mode, it'll just turn everything to black. So maybe having 5 is generally lets you still see what you're doing and gives you, a bit of creative inspiration when you're looking through things. So yes, tends to be 5. It's been a while since I've used just one frame, and I have in the past. Maybe it's gone as high as 8, but maybe he's not used them all actually in the final image. Robert, I will come to yours. They are, because they were in email, they are further down. No, I will come to your questions, Robert, shortly. Javi is there. Catch you later, Anne-Marie. Good to see you. Right, so John Adamthwaite. When you print large, do you up-res your images or drop the PPI, points per inch? For my exhibition, we printed most, I don't know, you might be able to see behind me, some big stuff. So obviously these are the big canvases that are 40 by 30 inches. And I just, well, to be honest, the gallery printed the canvases. the A1 prints, basically I just, like my mate who did me printing, took my base files, which I hadn't blown up at all. I hadn't scaled up or anything. I just give them them, and in his print dialogue box when he printed them, he just set the size of the prints to fit in the paper that would then be cut down for the frames. So as long as I gave him the right measurements, and we just let it go, we didn't actually upraise or so the DPI would have dropped naturally. But with this style of photography, you could probably print it bang on at about 80 DPI. Because there's no hard edges where you're going to notice JPEG artification and all this kind of stuff. It is very painterly, so there's soft edges. So it tends not to be a problem, and it'll just drop the DPI depending on how much you're blowing it up. So hopefully that helps with that one, John. John's next one. At what point in your process, in commas, do you have the vision for the final image? Is it at the capture stage, once you've viewed the loaded images, or at some further stage in your process? All of them, John. If you were here for last week's live stream where I made that kind of dreamy, oceany, but it's a tree type of image, in my head before I started, I had a vision of where I wanted that one to go. I didn't know if it was going to work, but I knew where I wanted to go, and the general feel, that lighter feel, that warmer tones, where I wanted to go. So that's a prime example of where I wanted it to go before I edited it. Generally, I don't have a vision for the final image before I capture the image, before I capture any data. There's a few, very rarely, I've seen in my head the final image when I've seen the shot on the back of the camera. But that's very rare. I've seen maybe an idea I could work with and then seen where it's gone later on, but there's one or two where I've seen the vision of the final image when I've seen the shapes on the back of the camera. But that's possibly happened twice in, how long have I been doing this? Twice in 7 years. So if you're thinking like maybe 150,000 shots, it's happened twice. So that's a rarity. So the vision of the final images, the majority of them come about as I'm going through the image. You know, once I've mixed in a couple of layers, blended stuff together, and done the first rotate, that type of thing. That's when I kind of get the feel of where the final image will end up. So it's just a process of going through my process and then seeing what happens, and then you get the chance to refine with colour and all that kind of stuff. So there you go, that's that one. Hopefully that kind of answers that one, John. Are there any subjects and or conditions which do not seem to work for my brand of ICM? Any subjects? Well, one example, I went to the North York Moors last year with some friends, Mr. Rob Knight being one of them, that I mentioned earlier on, and that did nothing for me because there was nothing projecting above the horizon. When you were down in the valley, to be honest, we were in the car driving most of the time, and when you're up on the hill, the height of the hills had no bearing on my photography, because you move the camera and it just becomes a solid line. I think I've said jokingly I'll never be a mountain photographer, because one, I don't want to walk up them, because that's just like crazy and it's like knackering. If you want to drive us to the top of them, I'll put one of them carriageways, fine. I ain't walking up them. because there's no point, because when I get to the top, looking down at that fantastic scenery, once you start wafting the camera around, that scenery just turns into like a flat line. So being on the top of a hill is not a great place for this. If you're at the bottom of a hill in the valley looking up at these fantastic mountains, you've got a chance of getting an image, but up the top looking down, you're going to get nothing. It's all just going to disappear, really. So that's a subject I'll never really get anything from. Conditions, probably blue hour. It's starting to get a bit too dark to work with, but otherwise pretty much any time. I have shot the Aurora with ICM, obviously that being black dark, but that was just because I'd got bored of actually shooting it straight. Other condition, you can shoot it when it's dull and overcast, not a problem. So Justin, who's coming to see us on Saturday, and he says the forecast for being overcast, it's not going to matter too much. You just got to, you just adjust to compensate that if you want colour to work with. So yeah, conditions don't really apply, unless you don't like being out in the wet and windy weather. Obviously, with your gear, then you're not going to do it. But good conditions will help. Bad conditions, it doesn't really matter. It's about choosing the subject. So that was that one from John. Another one. John gave us 3. He's keeping me busy. So I will get to the others shortly. How often do you abandon an image partway through your process because you feel it won't make an acceptable final image, and at what point do you usually know? I think more recently I've ploughed on with images and just got on and finished them, or gone back to a certain point and then not started again, but started from that point again. So I haven't, it's been quite rare I've started off on a path and just got that pissed off that I've just abandoned it. Again, it's like the creative block. You just keep on going, and then there's lots I'll produce that I'll never show because I think they're crap. But I will actually push them through to a finished point. And I think a lot of that is coming from doing these live streams, because as we're going along, I'll tell you that I'm hating this, but I'm going to keep on going. And then in the last 5 minutes, something catches my eye, or one tweak of colour or positioning, and all of a sudden the image is there, way better than it was before. So abandonment is pretty low these days. In the past, it's been quite high. But at what point do I know? It can vary from, the last, if you class image making as being 100% mathematical process, you're probably getting a feeling of maybe it's about 70-75% of the way through that this maybe's not going to go anywhere. But you might get a shock at 95%, where that bad image becomes a good one. And sometimes that 75% period onwards, it's just ploughing on until you finish it, and then it's never to be seen again. So generally, I'll just not show anything that I'm not happy with. I've got loads of them that I was just sitting around doing nothing because I don't like them, or I've made them, I've liked them as soon as I've finished them, and then you wake up the next morning and you just look back at what you've done, and you just think, whatever, I've just wasted an entire day editing pictures because you don't like any of them. So hopefully that's answered that, John. So thank you for them 3 questions, John. Right, so the next two are from Robert Graham, who's in chat, or he was before anyway. So Robert asks, do I have a day job or am I a full-time photographer? I am self-employed. So I do a few things, a few varied things. And so photography is a whack of it. I also do other bits and pieces, a tiny bit of website design, tiny bit of garden maintenance. I'll lend my hand to pretty much anything. I mean, a big whack of last winter, I was painting and decorating. I'll just pretty much do anything to make money from. So, but photography has always been a case of keep on building, build the brand to the point where last year was the best year I've had, and last autumn was the best period of time I've had for business side of stuff. So that's good, and it's just pushing on so I can do less of the other bits and more of the photography. Time wise, it's all photography. But the money the money part of photography is low and it's higher and everything else. So you just got to, build it up so it eventually takes over everything. That's the desire. So I don't know. So I'm not employed by anybody else. I am just me, cobbling stuff together. But doing, I'm doing more and more photography because obviously I've got the one-to-one tuition stuff. Selling products, obviously the presets have been great for making money, as in making money enough money to pay bills, making enough money to go on holiday, nowhere near, but just to keep things churning over. Having things like that have been great. I am about to do the calendars, so expect to see samples of that in the next few days. And again, that's a little bit of money to pay a few more bills over the winter. So the next question. Well, this is the last one, so we'll then go back through chat to see what people have been asking in there. Again from Robert. How did you find ICM? Who inspired me to make it a full-time gig? So I kind of explained about how I found ICM earlier on. Inspiration. There's been a few folk really very early on when I started experimenting with motion. Was David Baker. I'm not sure if you will have heard of him. Goes by was it Milu Vision online. For a while he was doing fantastic wave photography. He called Series Sea Fever. Made a book about it. Brilliant. So looking at his work really inspired us to play around with that slightly more movement in waves, which made me start moving the camera whilst I captured waves. So he was an inspiration to start. Fantastic photographer. I think he's exhibited at the Royal Academy, that kind of stuff. When it comes down to ICM and creative stuff, abstract stuff, Valder Bailey, Doug Chinnery, Chris Friel, those are your three that you should be looking at. They're doing very abstract stuff at the minute, which is great. If you're not quite into the very abstract stuff, then I don't know who to aim for actually. Me. And I obviously take a lot of inspiration from painters of the 19th century. So you Turner's Constables, Monet, people like that. Even a little bit of what's that American fella called? Oh, he's gone out my head. Painted blocks of colour. Forgetting. My brain's fried. Yes, painted blocks of colour. Can't remember his name. Rothko, that's the one. Even like somebody like that inspiring us to work with weird abstract blocks of colour and things like that. Just taking in that kind of inspiration and then turning it into using it ICM camera wise and processing wise. So yeah, I mean, what inspired us to make it a full-time gig? The fact I didn't really want to work for anybody else is a big inspiration. I've tried the whole being employed thing. I can last about, I think the longest I've lasted is about 5 years. And then I just get, not itchy feet, I just get sick of dealing with other people's crap, or I'd rather deal with my own crap. So there. So yeah, that's pretty much my explanation on that one. So hopefully that was okay of it. And just to wrap up, I will go through chat and see what's all questions in here, and I'll rattle through what I can see. Right, I know Peter asked as a question, was one. Paul, sorry. Paul, how do you decide the order of layers in Photoshop? You often move them around and I can never figure out why. Intuition. Intuition, experience and experimentation, Paul, is the cop-out answer. It is sometimes it's just knowing roughly what each blend mode will do to as each layer interacts pixel wise. I think it's the light and blend mode, well certainly soft light as well, depends on the order. It'll react differently depending on the order, whereas if you use something like multiply, it doesn't matter what order it is, it'll end up looking the same. So generally when I'm using soft light, I'll change the order, and also obviously some layers I'll actually mix in a different blend mode as well. But it's just intuition and experience and experimentation, months and months and years of it, to get to the point where you just have a feeling of where it'll go. So hopefully that answers. It'll not really help you, Paul, but hopefully that answers why I do it, and that's how I know where to go for it. David, would you consider using it? I already answered that one. Can't even scroll down here properly. Peter answered that one. Right. Peter, ever tried an ICM with a macro subject? Not a macro subject. Probably the closest I've been was one of them early days where I did the sunflower shot, and obviously that would have been shot from about that far away with a 50mm lens. So macro, I mean the thing with that is like macro distances. Your general shutter press, the amount of movement you'll get from a camera, that's quite a bit of movement when you get down to that finite kind of detail. That's probably why I use a wide lens a lot of the time for the landscapes, is that you can be very generous with movement and you're still retaining quite a bit of detail, because once you start going up to say your 70 to 200 lenses, which I've used a handful of times, you only having to move a small amount to get a large amount of movement in the capture. So maybe I wouldn't really have a go with a macro subject. Be interesting to have a go anyway. Gilbert Solver, ever tried ICM and flower, single or flower bed? Yes, I have. I've often shot a patch of poppies, and I'm actually going to plant a wildflower, lawn, garden type of thing, with a big mix of flowers, and I will shoot them next year when they grow. So yes, I have. Sometimes I do wonder what I'm going to do with it, because you're just shooting the same thing all the time. But I have done it, and I've shot single flowers as well. I just tend to work more with scenery. But yeah. Right, next one. No worries, John.
Alex Ditch, looking at getting a mirrorless to add to my bridge camera for a long exposure, but can't choose between A7 III or A7R2 or 3. Next thing looks interesting. Have you used mirrorless before? I have a Canon M50. That's as close to mirrorless as I've gotten. I did. This is, I mean, the very first iteration of the XT1, the Fuji XT1. I had a loan of that for a month, and this is very early on in my ICM days, so I was still very much experimenting and shooting a lot of normal stuff. It did okay. I don't know, I haven't had the chance to experiment with any others. The one thing I found with my Canon M50 is that it captures the image very quickly before you've had a chance to get really much movement. And the other thing is with mirrorless, I can't hear when the shutter opens, so timing things right for movement is pretty tricky. So yeah, it's one of them things you just gotta kind of experiment with. I am not lucky enough to have had a play with loads of cameras and stuff. I think I've the two that I own, you know, I've got the M50 there, and my D700 is back. I mean, the D700 is 10 years old. I've had this coming up a year, and that's basically all I've used in the last 10 years. So I haven't had a chance to play really. So I can't really help you on the gear side of things, because I don't have an in with all these camera companies that lend you cameras left, right, and centre. It would be nice, but I think obviously you're looking at mirrorless because it's a lighter weight kind of solution, which is fine. I think I would personally, if my D700 broke and I was looking to upgrade to something good, I would just stick to a DSLR. You know, so like the 800, D800, D850, 5D Mark III, up to 4 or whatever number they're up to now. I think I would still be kind of thinking about the mechanical type of thing. A lot of it really is down to noise of shutter, so I can actually hear when it's open and when it's shut. The mirrorless ones and the electronic shutters, far too quiet, don't know what's going on. David, any joy selling images at the gallery? I sold 2. Would have been nicer if it had been more, but I did sell 2. So I sold one of the ones I was actually in originally, and then when that sold and disappeared, I had to fill the gap. So I took 3 small ones down, and one of them sold. So it's just typical. You just got to laugh at these things. Right, can't scroll. Right, I see Robert asked me, you're an electrical engineer by day. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Everybody's got to have the thing. Is that it's the whole going solo, going full time, and that kind of thing. It's circumstances. I made the decision when I was 33 to jack in my job and go self-employed, because I had very few overheads. I had a bit of savings. My aunt had my aunt had died maybe 2 years beforehand, and she left a little bit of money, which meant I could kind of work on things and develop things without the pressure. All that pressure is on now because all that's gone now. But yeah, that's kind of circumstances. If you've got wife, kids, mortgage, all that kind of stuff to deal with, I would just say just continue in your work and go on from there. Right. Okay. Alex, what company am I using to create my calendars? Askprint. I used them back in 2013. The last calendar I did was 2015, I think, and I did like a very small run just for family and a few neighbours and stuff. back in 13, 14, 15, and they came out great. No quibbles. Came out fantastic, fairly economical. I think the company's actually got better since then as well. So just going back to them, he's just sent us the template for them today, so I'll be piecing that together and putting them out. Alex, severely sight impaired and using a bridge camera but sort of long exposure and other subjects and getting mirrorless. I've used it. Alright, that was kind of a continuation. Yeah, I can't really advise, to be honest, Alex, on brands and that kind of stuff. I use an old DSLR. King Babsy, do you have any other non-visual things that influence your pictures, music, novels, theatre, etc.? Not recently. I am a Star Wars nerd. But that doesn't really inspire. That's just me being a nerd. A lot of Lord of the Rings, like, when the film started coming out in 2000, 2001. Very much a Lord of the Rings nerd for a while, so that's maybe where some of the fantasy elements come from. I did classical civilization at A level in school, so that's maybe where some of the Greek mythology type of things come from. Music, I wouldn't say that really influences, because I just listen to crap. And what else? Novels. I haven't got time to read. I haven't watched a film in ages, so them type of things. Recently, there haven't been influences, but there will be underlying influences from my younger days when I had time for that kind of crap. So yeah, I mean, all that kind of stuff is built up over time in the background of my head somewhere, and does come out. For inputting new stuff in to influence. I just haven't got time. I still haven't seen Avengers Endgame yet. And now it's, I can rent it now, and I'm thinking, when have I got 3.5 hours to sit and watch a bloody film? So I will get to it eventually. But yeah. Right. Again, I'm interested in how much of your photos are deliberate and how much accidents. Again, King Babsy, I'm interested in how much of your photos are deliberate and how much are by accident. Do you have a specific image in mind when you take the photo? Do you take the photos and see what's good after? I take the photos and see what's good after, and a lot of them have been by happy accident. I have got to admit that. A lot of the process is just by an accidental discovery that something does something, and then you just run with it, and then it becomes an integral part of your process. Alex, yes, the more you order, the cheaper they will get individually. Yeah, you can build your own. There's an online builder thing where you can be as simple as just dropping in a photograph, and then they'll do everything else for you. I think they've got an option where people can buy direct through them, and then they take a percentage and the printing costs and all that kind of stuff. So, but give them a look out. So it's askprint.co.uk. Worth having a look and having a chat with Gary, the owner. He'll be able to advise you fully. Yeah, lots of Lord of the Rings. No worries. Well, I think is it. What made me get into photography in the first place? I've always resonated towards the visual side of communicating. I've never been one for the written side of things. So it's all visual. It's easier. I could sketch reasonably when I was younger. I've always had that little bit of art in us somewhere. So that's pretty much why it ended up being photography. And photography is an easy way of getting a picture onto a bit of paper with minimal effort. Whereas painting, it would take him hours, days, weeks, whatever. A photograph, one click, you're there. And obviously you can do all the other stuff after, but generally you've made that starting point in one click. So there you go. So that's pretty much it. I've been gone on a long time. Let me see. We are. I'm not sure how long we've been going, because it's not telling me. It's not telling me this new setup. Analytics, that might be the one. Yeah, I think been going more than an hour anyway. So right, this is the last one I'm answering. What are you trying to communicate with your pictures? I have no idea. I'm just making pictures that please me, and then if somebody else likes them, then great. I am not putting across some big overarching meaning. There's maybe a bit of a maybe some of the naming of some of the exhibition pieces and the subject matter, it came across as a bit doomsday-like, but apart from that, there was no deliberate aiming for that. That's just the way sometimes I think, and how the work comes across. So right, thank you very much for your questions. I will quit rambling now. Thank you very much for everybody that's come along to listen to me ramble away. I think there's a fair few given up recently, but that's great. It's been good to have so many of you in watching, and might do one of these again in the future. But in the meantime, hopefully I will get out later in this week and get some more images taken, and then I can get back to editing next week for Tuesday night edits, and get back to making images, because that's what I should really be doing. So thank you very much. Thank you, David. Thank you, King Babsy. That's a great name, must say. Thanks, Paul. Good of you to be here. And yeah, that's enough rambling. You've heard enough of me for tonight. It's about an hour and 10 minutes. Far too long. So yeah, I might try to chop this down into a video. Might be an idea. Yeah. All these people have been sitting watching and not telling us they've been in as well. Cheeky sneakies. And we'll see on Saturday, Justin. It is Saturday, isn't it? Right. Yes, must go. So thank you for watching. Leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, tell your mates, all that kind of stuff. And we'll catch you in the next one. Keep it hard. See ya.